So, considering these differences in survival rates, what do these results suggest about the impact of adding immunotherapy to consolidation therapy for MRD negative patients, and how might this influence standard of care going forward?
Well, of course, it showed that survival was improved, and it's now become the standard of care. And the company that makes blinatumomab, they submitted the data from our trial to the FDA, and the FDA approved another indication for blinatumomab. It was already approved for relapsed patients. It was already approved for MRD positive patients. And now they approved it, and they just said in the consolidation phase of chemotherapy.
Mm,
And basically, that's going to encompass these MRD negative patients.
mm,
So that's exciting that we now have this additional treatment that we can give to improve patient survival. It's also suggesting to us that by having this available, maybe we can cut back on the chemotherapy that we're giving and give less chemotherapy and rely more on the immune therapy to help keep the patient's leukemia in remission. And there's
mm.
already some studies in older patients where we've combined a couple different immunotherapy treatments, one of them being blinatumomab, without giving any chemotherapy, and we're seeing good results. In younger patients, we're not ready to abandon chemotherapy because they still can have good outcomes with this treatment, but we think we might be able to cut back. And so that's what's going to, I think, be a future avenue of research and a future goal to lessen the amount of chemotherapy and lessen some of the side effects and improve people's quality of life.
Mhm. There was a slightly higher incidence of neuropsychiatric adverse events in the combination group compared to the chemotherapy alone. How should clinicians balance the survival benefit with the increased risk of neurologic or psychiatric toxicity, particularly in older adults, I think?
Well, this is a known side effect of blinatumomab. We don't understand completely the mechanism. We think some of maybe these T cells that get activated may actually get into the brain area and impact that. Um, so I think clinicians need to be aware of this and monitor patients for it. It's not, fortunately, life-threatening, and it is reversible. Uh, Oftentimes, the blinatumomab needs to be either stopped completely, or sometimes it can be stopped and then restarted at a lower dose. So I think it's just important for clinicians to be aware that this can happen, monitor their patients for it, and then be proactive in managing it.
So the trial allowed for maintenance therapy and allogenic transplantation. How did these factors interact with the primary findings, and what are some of the implications of sequencing consolidation, maintenance, and transplant strategies in this population?
Well, we at the time we designed the study, we weren't sure that transplant was still going to be needed or not. We thought that it likely still was, and so we left it to the doctor taking care of the patient whether he wanted to consider the patient for a transplant or not. We didn't mandate that this patient needed to have a transplant or this one did not. So we left that to the discretion of the investigator. Now, I mentioned earlier that we've always thought that patients with high risk genetic findings should have a transplant, even if they become MRD negative. We're starting to rethink that and thinking that maybe some of those patients may not need to have a transplant, so they could be closely monitored. So the results of the study may impact whether patients have transplant or not. Now, a less known fact about the study was we wanted the patients in both groups, the blinatumomab plus chemotherapy and the chemotherapy arms, to have the same total amount of therapy. And so the patients that got the blinatumomab plus chemotherapy actually, when they finished their consolidation, they got maintenance treatment, but they got less of it than the patients that got chemotherapy. And despite that, they still did well. So we're starting to think that maybe maintenance therapy is not as important as we thought it was. And again, we're not ready to necessarily abandon that in younger patients, but it's a key question: is do we know whether we can shorten maintenance? Could we even possibly get rid of it altogether?
Mhm.